Welcome to Chapter 30, the subjunctive mood. Now, we've already been introduced to the subjunctive mood and a couple uses of it, and here we are now going to get all of the tenses, starting with the perfect and pluperfect subjunctive. The indirect question, another use of the subjunctive, and very importantly, now that we have all the tenses, the sequence of tenses. Perfect and pluperfect subjunctive, the formation. In the active voice, it uses ERI on the perfect stem, and in the pluperfect, it just puts endings on the perfect infinitive. Let's take a look at these and see what I mean by that. Amo, amare, amawi, amatum. What is the perfect stem? A, from the third principal part, AMAV. And so what you're going to do is put ERI on that stem, take off the I and put ERI on it, and then your endings. Amawerim, amaweris, amawerit, amawerimis, amaweritis, amawerint. That's it. Second declension, habeo, habere, habui, habitum, same thing. The perfect stem is the habui, the H-A-B-U of the third principal part. Habu erim, habu eris, habu erit, habu erimis, habu eritis, habu erint. So that ERI goes right on that perfect stem. And again, the perfect stem, third principal part minus the I. So in this case, dukes is our third principal part minus the I. So we are going to add that ERI on all of them. Dukes erim, dukes eris, dukes erit, dukes erimis, dukes eritis, dukes erint. Moving on with the third IO, capio, capere, capi, captum, third principal part, capi, drop off that I to give us the perfect stem, caperim, caperis, caperit, caperimis, caperitis, caperint. And the fourth, audio, audire, audivi, that A-U-D-I-V is your perfect stem, audiverim, audiveris, audiverit, audiverimis, audiveritis, audiverint. So this is your perfect active subjunctive. The pluperfect, we put the endings on the perfect infinitive. What is the perfect infinitive? It's the third principal part, the perfect stem, plus ISSE. Now remember when we did the imperfect, okay? What did we do? We put endings directly on the present infinitive, okay? For the pluperfect, we're putting them on the perfect infinitive. Amawisem, amawises, amawiset, amawisimus, amawisitis, amawissent. Same thing. Habeo, habere, habui. So the infinitive is habuisse. So we're going to put our endings on the perfect infinitive. Habuissem, habuisses, habuet, habuisset, habuisses, habuissimus, habuissitis, habuissent. Yeah, repeating a lot here. Duxi, duxisse is your stem. Duxissem, duxisses, duxisset, duxissimus, duxisitis, duxissent. Very, very, very consistent. Here we go with the third principal part. Capisse is going to be your infinitive. And again on this one, because I'm getting tongue-tied, I would encourage you to continue to repeat them though. We just put those endings right on that perfect infinitive. Audi wisse is your perfect infinitive of the fourth principal part, of the fourth conjugation. And here we just put the endings audi wissem, audi wisses, audi wisset, audi wissemus, audi wisses, audi wissetis, audi wissent. Those are your present perfect with the ERI and the pluperfect form, active forms of your subjunctive. Let's look at the passive. Just like in the indicative, the passive uses the fourth principal part plus a form of the verb to be. With the subjunctive, the perfect passive is going to use the fourth principal part plus a subjunctive form of the verb to be. Let's take a look at those. Amo, amare, amawi, amatum. In the passive, we're going to use the fourth principal part, amatum, and a subjunctive form of the verb to be, the present subjunctive. Amatu sim, amatu sit, sis, amatus sit. Notice I changed the ending. I chose to make it all, rather than amatus to indicate it's a subjunctive. I mean, it's an adjective, okay? I chose to use just the masculine form for the sake of space and consistency. But they will change if they're feminine or neuter subjects, okay? So we have the fourth principal part for the present perfect subjunctive in the passive, fourth principal part plus the present form of the verb sum in the subjunctive. Sim, sis, sit, simus, situs, sint. Again, very, very, very consistent. Fourth principal part plus sim, sis, sit, simus, situs, sint. And notice we do have to change ductus to ducti or ducta to ducti if it's feminine. Again, very consistent. I'm afraid, oh, yep, that's correct. Capio, capere, capi, captum. Fourth principal part, captus, sim, sis, sit, simus, situs, sint. I mean, I know it's a lot of information and a lot of words, but once you start using it, you get used to it, and it's very, very consistent. We'll go to the fourth one, auditum, the fourth conjugation, auditu sim, sis, sit, simus, situs, sint. That's it. The pluperfect subjunctive is going to use the fourth principal part plus a form of the past tense, the imperfect tense of your verb sum esse fui futurum. And what's that going to look like? We're not going to use sim, sis, sit. We are going to use essem, esses, esset, essemus, essetus, essent. But so the present perfect passive, we're going to use the present form of the verb to be, and the pluperfect passive, we're going to use the past tense of the verb to be, both in the subjunctive. Habitus essem, esses, esset, essemus, essetus, essent. Third conjugation, duxi, ductum. So we're going to use ductus essem, ductus esses, ductum, ductus esset, ductus essemus, ductus ducti, ducti, essemus, ducti, essetus, ducti, essent. And very, very consistent. For the sake of completeness, we're going to finish these off. Here's our third IO, captus, SM, and capti, essemus. You see all the forms there. I know we're going through them fast, but it's just very, very, very consistent, okay? Auditus, SM, esses, esset, essemus, essetus, essent. And those are all of your forms. At this point now, you have all the forms of all the verbs. Let's do a synopsis. Amo, amare, amavi, amatum. And we're going to do a synopsis in the active, third person singular. The present tense is amat. Imperfect, amabat. Future, amabit. And we're starting with the indicative. And the present perfect, amawit. Pluperfect, amawerat. Future perfect, amawerit. Now let's go to the subjunctive. Okay, and you will be expected on the exam to be able to do a synopsis of the subjunctive. Amet, amaret, amawerit, amawiset. These are the forms we just talked about. Notice how in the present indicative it's amat, and in the present subjunctive it's amet. The imperfect, we have that amare. Notice on the present and the imperfect, we use the second principal part or form of the second principal part. And the present perfect and pluperfect, we use the third principal part. Let's look at the passive synopsis. Amator. In the present, imperfect, and future, we just put the imperfect, the passive endings. But in the present perfect, pluperfect, and future perfect, we use the fourth principal part. Now, I think this is helpful seeing it this way because, again, in the present and the imperfect and the subjunctive, just like the indicative, we put the passive endings. But when we go to the perfect system, we're going to use the fourth principal part plus a form of the verb to be. Notice here in the passive column, okay, the passive column, the perfect tense uses the fourth principal part plus the indicative form of the verb to be. And the subjunctive uses the fourth principal part plus a subjunctive form of the verb to be. This is a synopsis. It's a great achievement. This is awesome. Let's talk about the sequence of tenses. If we're in a primary sequence, a present tense or a future tense, our choices for the subjunctive are present subjunctive or perfect subjunctive. If we're in a secondary sequence, the imperfect, the present perfect, pluperfect, all those in the past tense, our options for the subjunctive are imperfect or pluperfect. This is how the book presents it. Let's look at some examples because I know this is confusing. I know presented in this way, looking at this chart, at this moment, it doesn't make sense. Let's show some examples. I am asking why he is painting the house blue. Okay? Notice this is an indirect question. I am asking is your main subject, is your main verb. Why he is painting the house blue, that is going to be your subjunctive, your indirect question. So we need to determine, we need to ask what tense we're using at the first part and in the second part. In other words, I am asking. That's happening now. That's what we call a primary sequence. It's not happening in the past, it's happening now. I am asking why he is painting the house blue. Remember that chart I just showed you? Our only choice, if we're in a primary sequence, is the present or perfect subjunctive. That's it. That's it. When we get that, those are our only choices. And how do we determine? The painting is happening at the same time as the asking. Okay? I am standing there, somebody's painting, I am asking, that is going to be the present subjunctive. I am asking why he is doing that. All of it's from the present, all of it's contemporaneous, present in the first part, present in the subjunctive clause. We're good. So this is what's meant by primary sequence, present perfect. I am asking now why he painted the house blue. Okay? That's different. I'm not asking why he is now doing it. I am asking why in the past he painted the house blue. The asking is happening now, so we're still in a primary sequence. But the painting happened before that. So our only choices are present perfect. Given that the painting happened before the asking, then we're going to use the perfect subjunctive. Do you see the difference? I am asking why he is painting, present indicative, present subjunctive. I am asking why he did paint in the past, present indicative, perfect subjunctive. These are primary sequences. Let's see what happens when we get to a secondary sequence. As you can see from the chart, our choices for the secondary sequences are going to be imperfect or pluperfect. I asked, that's in the past tense. I asked yesterday why he was painting the house blue. So, I asked yesterday and the painting was going on yesterday. We're in a secondary sequence. All of this is happening at the same time. The only choice is imperfect or pluperfect. But again, painting and asking are happening at the same time. Hey, yeah, I saw him out in front of his house yesterday, and when I walked by, I asked him yesterday why yesterday he was, at that time, painting the house blue. Overemphasizing all this happening at the same time. So, painting is in the imperfect subjunctive. So, the main part of the sentence dictates our two choices, and then whether those two items happened at the same time or beforehand is how you distinguish between the two. Secondary sequence, imperfect or pluperfect. Now, it's contemporary action. It happened at the same time as the asking. That's imperfect. Guess which one we're going to focus on next? I asked yesterday why he had painted the house blue. Okay? Painting's over and done with. Yes, so we're in a secondary sequence. I asked yesterday, not today. The only choices are the imperfect or the pluperfect. Okay? And since the painting happened before the asking, the painting is already further back in the past, okay? The asking happened in the past, the painting logically happened before the asking, because I walked by and said, hey, he's painted his house blue. And so I asked him why last week he painted his house blue. Why? And our choice for that, our option is the pluperfect subjunctive. Hopefully it makes a little more sense. Until you get into it, and see examples, it's kind of hard to follow because I've got this chart. Okay, what's the logic behind the chart? But between this presentation that explanation that I'm providing now, and your textbook, hopefully this will make sense. Let me know if you have questions. Thanks.